like you said, Fletcher is a guy who often makes himself available. The team offers Fletcher up because he's a veteran, been here, popular player, handles himself in media situations. They've had a couple now since the offseason started, and Fletcher has not spoken once. Any bad blood that he is not happy with the fact that he was really talk about being released. It's like, yeah, Fletcher Cox was released by the Eagles. Oh, but then they turned around and re-signed him for $14 million. So do you think that maneuvering under the cap had something to do with it? We appreciate you hanging with us here on Birds 365. Thank Garner Brody for hopping on board, talking all things Eagles with us. We started with James Bradberry as well. We should. Probably if you're listening to this channel at this time, you know by now, James Bradberry, 1-year contract with the Eagles, $7.5 million with incentives, probably relatively easy to earn, playing time, games played, and the like. He's not going to have 12 picks to earn that $2.5 million extra to take it up to $10 million. But he got market value that I thought he could get, even though he was released as late as he was in the free agency process. Good for the Eagles. They weren't looking to save a couple of bucks on the front. They saw a need. They saw a player who filled that need. They made a team in their own division weaker by bringing him in here. I think they can beat the Giants twice anyway, with or without Bradberry, but that now makes it that much stronger.
That's true, by the way. With or without him,
with or without Bradberry, they still should take the Giants down twice this year. And you touched on this earlier. When I asked you to give me a number on the Eagles this season, the schedule came out. You put your W's and L's up there. We both landed at 11-5. Last year, we both landed at 9 wins, and sure enough, the Eagles won 9 games. And this year, we both came out at 11 wins for the Eagles. We even both said, if you couldn't go to 11, you either had to go up to 12 or back to 10. We'd both go back to 10, which meant it was a soft 11 wins. That's what Bradford's signing yesterday moves the needle for me. I would go now a hard 11 wins. That if you said, Jody, it's not going to be 11, you got to go either up to 12 or back to 10. I would go up to 12 before I would go back to 10 now. That's the kind of impact that he's got, at least for me, in the Eagles defense this upcoming season.
I would still go back to 10, but it has nothing to do with Bradberry. I mean, he makes him a better team. It has more to do with, my concern to be a really good team in this league, it's always about consistency. And more than anything else, I always say Peyton Manning is the best regular season quarterback I've ever seen. And maybe Aaron Rodgers is kind of pushing him to that. And the reason why is because they're so consistent every year. I used to joke about Indianapolis. A bad season for Indianapolis started with 10 wins. That was a bad season when Peyton started kicking in. Right. That was a bad season. Double-digit wins was terrible for that team. An average season was 12. And then a good season, you went up to 13, maybe even 14. That's how consistent they were. And that's the next step. You can have a good team, but can you be consistent to do it every week? That's when I look at the Eagles' schedule, those first 4 games. They should beat Detroit. They should beat Minnesota at home. They should beat Washington. They should beat Jacksonville. But I don't think they're going to go 4-0. I can't assume consistency this early to be that good of a team. And a lot of it, people are going to kill me. A lot of it has to do with the quarterback. I have to see it first. You have to be consistent from week to week to week to week.
That's very fair, John. The quarterback wasn't consistent last year.
Yeah.
He had games where you were wowed. He made plays with his legs that had you coming up out of your chair, even threw an occasional great pass. But then he'd have wild passes that weren't even close, and offensive efforts by this team that you just knew weren't going to be good enough, even against some lesser light teams where you said, well, it's good we were playing them this week, because if we had done that against the Buccaneers or the Packers or the Cowboys, that wouldn't have been good enough. That's a very fair evaluation of Jalen Hurts last year. he was way too inconsistent. So if you're looking for consistency out of the Eagles, it's all got to start with him. He has to be a much more consistent
Yeah, and
quarterback.
that's why I still go 11. And if you force me to go a one way, I'm going to go back because of that consistent. Doesn't really have anything to do with the corner. Bradberry should make him a better team. That's my bigger concern is the consistency and why it's a little bit of a softer number for me.
Here's the reason why I would go up rather than come back down. It's the schedule. They really do have an easier
Yeah.
schedule this year. And part of it is the fact that it's the Commanders twice and the Giants twice. They're in a soft division again this year. But they lost twice to Dallas last year. And truth be told, neither game was competitive. I really only count one of the two, and that was early in the season when they got housed down in Dallas by the Cowboys. We didn't learn anything from the last game of the season when the Eagles played the JV against the Cowboys. That's not happening this year. They got to beat the Cowboys. And the game at home, where you would think that you'd have a better chance to win than down in Dallas, doesn't mean they can't win in Dallas. Doesn't mean they can't go 0-2 again this year against Dallas. But you would hope that what the two rosters say as of right now is, yeah, it's a toss-up in the NFC East. And if that's the case, you should win one against Dallas, lose one against Dallas. You would think more likely that you're going to win the home game. Week 6. That's early in the season. If you start looking at the schedule and believing they can start 2-0 and you're going to beat the Cowboys week 6 with Arizona slammed in between, man, how optimistic could we get with this team if we believe they're going to beat Dallas and they get that week 6 win?
Then you'd start really talking. But you're right about the schedule. I mean, one of the things about the schedule, and it's amazing because the Eagles have had easy schedules, let's be honest, for a number of years now, mainly because of the NFC East and how weak the NFC East has been. But this year they're playing the NFC North, right? So you have Detroit and you have Chicago. 2 of the 4 teams are just, they look like they're not going to be that competitive. Then you have the AFC South, same thing, right? 2 of the 4 teams, Jacksonville, Houston, shouldn't be that competitive. Yeah, I mean, the schedule is, as NFL schedules go, is easy. But that's the thing about the NFL. Everybody's got good players. Detroit's got good players, believe it or not. Jacksonville's got good players. It's not like college where Alabama's playing whoever they put early in their schedule, Samford, or forget about, the bad teams in the SEC. They're even going to roll over them. In the NFL, everybody can beat you if you're not consistent.
I heard this morning. I had not noticed it. Shame on me for not noticing it. Thanks to the guys on the NFL Network for pointing it out. First 2 weeks of the season, Johnny Mac. Who did the Eagles play?
Detroit and Minnesota.
2 teams with losing records from last year, correct?
Correct.
Who are the first 2 teams the Cowboys play?
I don't know.
I'll tell you. How about the Buccaneers and the Bengals? Eagles get Lions, Vikings. Cowboys get Bucks, Bengals. First 2 weeks of the season. I'd say the Eagles are starting with an easier schedule than their main opponent in the division, and it works itself out over the 17
but
games.
The Cowboys also have an easy schedule for the same reason the Eagles do. And
Cowboys
so it's everybody else.
have an easier schedule than the Eagles because they play the Eagles. And the Eagles have to play the Cowboys. And the Cowboys had a better record than the Eagles did last year. So when you add it all up, the Cowboys have the easiest schedule in the National Football League this year. The Eagles have the second easiest schedule in the National Football League this year. The only difference being, they play each other, and the Cowboys had the better year last year.
And we don't think about it, but, you bring it up. So that's got to be one of the more difficult, maybe the most difficult portion of the Cowboys schedule. I don't have it in front of me, as I said, but
yeah, I do.
If you better get off to a good start. If that's going to be where the Cowboys struggle the most. So that makes it even more important. But I really find it hard that this team's going to be 4-0. I just hope it's not 2-2. 2-2 would be a disaster. 3-1 would be fine. 3-1 is what I expect. I expect them to lose to either Minnesota or Washington and start the season 3-1, which would be fine.
And even though I do enjoy watching, I watch the NFL Network before you and I come on every single day in case there's some breaking news. I certainly wanted to hear what they had to say about the James Bradberry signing, which it was the lead on the NFL Network's Good Morning Football show, which, by the way, Miss Kay Adams.
Where's Kay going? At Amazon?
That has not officially been announced, but that's a speculation. She'll be their pre and post game show host for the big Thursday night stream on Amazon this upcoming season. Hasn't like I said, hasn't been announced yet. I usually like Peter Schrager. Oh, has he got a Giants jersey on? I didn't even notice that. I think he's very good. Does stuff with Fox as well as this stuff on Good Morning Football. He does from time to time slip into his Giant fan mode, though.
Wow, I didn't even know. I thought he was an Eagles fan. I didn't even know that.
Schrager?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
no.
had no idea.
Oh, no.
But I don't watch the show that much, but he always talks up the Eagles, so I just assumed.
No, Brant talks up the Eagles.
You're right.
Schrager's a Giant guy, and he couldn't take his Giant glasses off today because Brant came on and was singing the praises of the Eagles, and this was a big move, a big addition, and the like. And Schrager went to the, but didn't we have the offseason a couple of years ago, the quote-unquote, the Eagles won the offseason when Vince Young, in being
back to Vince?
Yeah, he went back down the Vince road of Dream Team. So any kind of defense of the Giants moving away from Bradberry, he actually said this. He was released by the Giants. So before we get too excited about what the Eagles have done, just remember, they've added a player that was released by the Giants. Come on, Peter, you're better than that. You know why he was released by the Giants. Because your general manager gave him too big a contract. Yeah. You got caught in cap hell. It's the only reason why he was released by the Giants. Wasn't because the Giants went, oh, wow, this player's gone backwards so badly, we don't really believe he could start for us anymore. No, it was a cap casualty. You understand how the National Football League works. These things happen. The Giants paid themselves into a corner and were forced to release him. It was so obvious that they had put out a bad contract. Nobody would trade for the guy. That they knew the Giants were going to release him. They did, and the Eagles were in a position to be able to pay him market value and get him to come here. Usually he doesn't do this, but I thought he was wearing his Giant rooting colors on his sleeve today in evaluating the big move in the National Football League yesterday. No, don't be trying to downplay how much this is going to help the Eagles because the Giants released him. You don't buy that for a millisecond, do you, Johnny Mac?
No, they didn't release him because I guess Aaron Robinson would be the starter if they rolled it out today.
Who is that?
He was a third-round pick last year. There was some speculation the Eagles, actually when Tom Donahoe and Howie Roseman had their little dust-up in the Milton Williams, and it turned out to be Lee McNeil is the player that Tom wanted. I thought he wanted Aaron Robinson in the moment because they needed a corner. So, I mean, he's a third-round pick. But no, they're not saying, "Oh, we have Aaron Robinson. We can get rid of James Bradberry." Strictly, as you mentioned, the salary cap decision and Dave Gettleman, messed up that team from a salary cap standpoint. There's no secret.
The new powers that be are trying to fix the mistakes that were previously made, and one of them was James Bradberry. It cost them, and I think it's going to cost them even more when Bradberry picks off a Danny Dimes pass this year in one of the two matchups between the Giants and the Eagles. All right, got to give you your props because I asked you yesterday, Johnny Mac, you're going to have veteran players made available. Eagles working out this week. So giving you guys a chance to chat up some of the guys. Who do you think is going to be made available? And I said, how many do you think you said? You said usually it's 5. I said, all right, then you got to give me 5 names. And you got to be right on at least 3 out of 5. We're setting the over-under at 3. See if you can get 4 right. And you rattled off 4. And on the 5th, you went to Fletcher Cox because we might have done it while
Kratz did me dirty.
Kratz suggested Fletcher Cox, and you said, yeah, we haven't heard from Fletcher yet. It's probably going to be Fletcher as the 5th one. And I kind of asked you about if there were someone else, who would you go? And you and I at the same time both said, how about Epsy? And sure enough, the 3 that you rattled off, the 4 that you rattled off were exactly the guys who were made available. And the 5th one was Epsy. If you hadn't gone Fletcher Cox, you would have gone 5 for 5, McMullen. You would have swept the category.
Yeah. Ed talked me into it. What can I say, Jim? Fletcher is typically a guy who talks and understands that's part of his job. So it's been a long time. And I think ultimately, obviously wants to put it off because of the contract and all the wrangling. But I thought ultimately, well, he's got to do it at some point. So, 3 weeks into, we're getting a group of players each week. Yeah, I bought the argument. I was wrong. It was so close.
So, and give you props because you were right on top of things. But let's go a step further. And again, I'm going to get killed here on the chat because it's Eagle negativity. Like you said, Fletcher is a guy who often makes himself available. The team offers Fletcher up because he's a veteran, been here, popular player, handles himself in media situations. They've had a couple now since the offseason started, and Fletcher has not spoken once. Any bad blood that he is not happy with the fact that he was really talk about being released. It's like, yeah, Fletcher Cox was released by the Eagles. Oh, but then they turn around and re-sign him for $14 million. So do you think that maneuvering under the cap had something to do with it? Yeah, I think so, Peter Schrager. These are ways that business is done in the National Football League. It's not just as cut and dry as, oh, he was released. They must think he sucks now. That's not the way it works. But Fletcher did have to re-sign with the Eagles after being released. $14 million, not bad, but only a 1-year deal. Do you think that all is not hunky-dory between the Eagles and Fletcher Cox?
That's an interesting question. I didn't get the feeling that Fletcher wanted to leave. But the Eagles gave him a lot of money for 1 year. A lot of people think the Eagles still overpaid Fletcher Cox by bringing him back at $14 million. So I don't know. He didn't spend a lot of time free, so that's an indication he didn't want to look around. Maybe his agent knew he wasn't getting 14 anywhere else. Generally, and I say this all the time, I've lived through it, star players won't accept pay cuts from their teams. They'll accept them from other teams. But it's very hard for star players to accept them from the teams they were on. So maybe there is a little bad blood.
I'll tell you the quick story, and then we got our guy, Bo Wolf from The Athletic, ready to join us coming up in just a couple of minutes. I was doing a show with JAKIB Media's own, he wasn't JAKIB Media's at the time, Barrett Brooks, and we were doing a show for WIP on a remote broadcast. It was Christmas week leading up to Christmas. A couple of days before Christmas, we were in a good bar in Center City, and he and I were doing a show together. And I asked him about Jason Peters. This was a good, solid 5 years ago when we were in the debating whether they would ask Jason Peters to take a haircut mode if he would renegotiate his contract down. And Barrett just looked at me and said, no chance, no shot, no how. The Eagles won't even ask because they know what the answer is. Jason's not taking a haircut. He's still Pro Bowl level. All right, he's dropped a little bit himself. He's not at the level he once was, but he was still a legitimate Pro Bowl level type guy. No, if they attempt to go there, And, oh, by the way, chances are Jeff Flory wouldn't allow Harry Roseman to go there. If they did, Jason couldn't say fast enough, yes, please release me. You want to try and run a game on me? No. God, just give me my release. And the Eagles never did. They just stuck with the contract that was in place. Barrett had that one exactly right. They did. They asked Fletcher Cox to probably take a haircut, and he said, no, thank you. If you don't want to pay me what my contract says, then give me my release. They did, and were able to get a contract re-put in place, and the Eagles did so by benefiting to get better salary cap space by it, but they did go there with Fletcher Cox. They didn't go there with Jason Peters. All right, Johnny Mac, we had our buddy Wolf in the
he'll be
green
back.
room.
He probably just dropped out. He'll be back.
We'll believe that we're going to get him re-linked in. Bo Wolf of the Athletic, Eagles beat guy next year on Birds 365.